Hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Life is Too Short. We're here every Wednesday at 7 o'clock. We record the poetry and the prose, and if you want to, come here with a song, that would be fantastic as well. What we've been doing the last couple of weeks, we've been, bringing along, you know, either a celebrity, a muse, or a mentor, poem, prose that you kind of admire, you've seen on stage, or you've seen a book launch, for example. And I was looking through my books, and I can't believe how many books I've had signed. Over all these like 9 years, I would say, and they've all. So I've read most of them, but I haven't read them all through. But it's given me inspiration to do that. But I come across. I want to actually highlight today from me is Scotia Extremist. Now I like this book. It's actually edited by Andy Jackson and Brian Johnston. I was actually at that launch, and what I love about it is they couldn't have fitted in any more poets if they tried. It was just looking through the poetry, just fantastic, to be honest with you. And they are the editors, but what I'd like to do today is just read their poems, today, if I may. And the first one is by Brian Johnston, and I can maybe read a little bit about Brian Johnston bio later on, but let me read the poetry first. This one is called North Britain. This carte de visite is a note, a collar left at our door, and a past as familiar to us as its own invention. The sepia tones that it's taught us, wherever the favoured garb, ones we expect like watch chains and fobs, bustles and paisley shawls, a neck brace hidden between the folds, but text embossed upon the reverse offers a moment of pause. Image and pose don't contain fashion intent on hiding what's been cast aside, so passé that Scotland needs, must be concealed, hidden behind its absence. NB here, noted well. Thank you. And Brian Johnston is actually the founder of Stanza. He also he founded various poetry groups as well.
In Edinburgh, yeah, he did early on, long time ago. Aye.
Yeah.
He did a lot of stuff a long time ago.
Very, very, a very big influencer in the poetry scene, definitely. And Andy Jackson, who we all love as well. Andy Jackson was the maker for the Federation in 2017. So I'm going to read his poem called Caledonia, which I think you'll like as well. Caledonia, Caledonia, what makes your big head so hard? Lee Jordan and the Timpani 5. I don't know if you can see my name on the label Mum had sewn into my shirts. It's there for me, my friend. So when I'm alone, I can take a kick under my collar. Mind the man I used to be before. I pitched up in these parts, smaller, dumber than the sum of the wars. We fought with you back then. I was lean and lanky, great big feet, ignorant of how the land and sky could be unfolded like a sheet. Before me and beyond, waking sooner every day to forest choirs and corby calls, the shaking of the land by sea, persistent fires, long put out in places I had drifted from. Mama said, son, keep away from there. It's grudges and it's frigid people lousy with laments, the day. Long gone when anyone might ask them what they know or think. But all she saw were English masks, the jokes recalled in the midst of drink, the history that wasn't hers. I've been telling you stories, singing songs. I do not own watching submarines put out to sea, their payloads long, unwanted, I see how the nation breaks and blends and bonds. I'm scarred for life, but maybe that is what it takes. What it is that makes our big heads hard. And, you know, I think next week we'll bring this along because there's just amazing poets in here. I'm going to finish off with Hannah Lavery's poem, if I may. Hannah Lavery she is just a phenomenal poet. I very much admire her. And, you know, she had a launch of her book as well, and I got her to sign the book. Now, it's to her father, and I really think any poem in here would be, you know, great to read. But I think there's one poem in particular that I kind of liked a lot as well. Scotland, You Know Mine. That was one I really enjoyed, and this one is called Thornton Lock Caravan Park. We're up the road for the weekend. There is this kids' park, and my kids are there. I'm observing them at a distance. It is one of those rare days, hot, proper hot. There has been talk of rain later, and so, you know, in that Scottish way we have, we're all panic. Och, fat dads, all lobster red, rooting strokes to play footy with their wee boys, and the rest laid out for a tan. I am uneasy. My husband is pottering in the van, making us a coffee. Our dog has settled himself by me, belly up for heat. Uneasy. Why? In the summer, I'm browner, or maybe it's just that we look at each other. The dreek keeps us head down to one another, maybe. But in the summer, I get packy. I get, where are you from? Once I got spat at through the school railings by passing high school kids shouting, "Gob on the half-caste." I was 8. Once I got smacked across the face in a bus by an old man shouting, "Dirty gollywog whore." I was 13. Once I got one summer night a bottle thrown at me by a group of rowdy skinheads singing, "Scotland the brave." The bottle smashed painful splinters across my head. I was 16. I am easy today because today I'm set with pen and pencil, with an objective eye. Today I am writer, archivist, grave robber, unearthing you now. Is it unseemly, unfair? I leave it, Hen. It's over and done with. And sure, the absence of you, missing you, is childhood memory, nothing new. And should I know now shroud you in sepia? Beautiful, long lost daddy. And I'll just read one more. It's called Pocket Money. He never had a wallet, kept his money like dirty hankies stuffed in back pockets, was always losing fibres, money slipping away like eels to be found stranded in sofa cracks, dragging knuckles stuck to the arses of jockeys, stuffed in back pockets, falling out like family. So this is actually by Stude Ruber, and Charlie Roy now is the editor of this, and it was actually founded by James T. Harding, that some of us know. David, I think you know James as well. James T. Harding. So
yes, I've not seen James since for many years. It was the last when they did it in the, what was that the White Room down in opposite the police station, the old police station, in the square.
Aye. So that's Stuart Finding. I love the title as well, Finding Sea Glass. And so if we have a chance later on, because I want you guys to read as well. And this one is just by Luard Press as well, and that's actually based in the Royal Mile. So these are both actually publishers that are based in Edinburgh. So Leslie, can I ask you to read, please, your Jamaican poetry? Can't wait.
Sure. we both saw Lorna Goodison, who is the Poet Laureate of Jamaica, probably 2016. I've seen her again since then, but I hadn't actually appreciated her husband is a professor of linguistics, and he has written this amazing book, and I'll tell you the title. Come Back to Me, My Language. Okay, that's it there. And it is really about how Jamaican or West Indian poetry evolved and the language has evolved. And with everything going on just now, I thought I would read a Jamaican poet. And it is kind of hard hitting, all right? And it was, I just loved that he drew my attention to beautiful poetry, right? And this is by the Jamaican Dennis Scott. Now notice the Scottish names, because they were the history of being named after plantation owners who often were Scottish.
I know. I mean, this is Scotland's.
I mean, and this is we all have to address this. They hanged him on a clement morning, swung between the falling sunlight and the woman's breathing like a black apostrophe to pain. All morning, while the children hushed their hopscotch joy and the cane kept growing, he hung there, sweet and low. At least that's how they tell it. It was long ago, and what can we recall of a dead slave or two, except that when we punctuate our island tale, they swing like sighs across the brutal sentences, and anger pauses till they pass away. The thing that Ted, and it's Ted Chamberlain who is writing, it's his book, he was saying that, you know, the heritage, they live with it. It's part of them, you know, it's not as if it's in the past, it is them. And I think that's what's coming out with the Black Lives Matter, when you see, so, do you want me to read another one?
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Right,
Yes.
I'm going to me, that poem is the black apostrophe that gets me every time.
Yeah.
You know, it's so powerful, so simple, but so powerful. This is one of Lorna's, and Lorna's obviously a contemporary writer, but very eminent as well. When the King of Swords gutted me and left me for dead, in my insides were found clots of poems, proving that poets are made of poems, and poems are truth demanding punctuation of light, and you're all. And that makes my head vie with night all day. I don't want to live this way anymore. Somewhere there is a clean, kind man with a deep and wide understanding of the mercy and the peace and the infinity. And we will, if we are lucky, live by the sea and serve and heal eatings of life's salt and bread, and at night lie close to each other and read poems for which somebody else besides me bled. And that will make me want to write poems. She's just wonderful. I just love her. I just love Lorna.
Well, I'm just glad that we're recording this so I can listen to that all over again.
I would totally recommend the book, and I'm going to say it again, right? Come Back to Me, My Language. It's poetry of and the West Indies. Ted and I had an amazing conversation about, because I've got a passion about linguistics and the evolution of language, and we were talking about how the language that you hear on the islands now is not just a patois of, you know, from African dialects. There's Scots in there too,
yes,
because there
that's
was
so
the Scots transported over there. They were called the Red Legs because they got sunburnt below their kilts, and they were slaves. They were working the plantations, you know, for their owners back here in Scotland. And so there's this mixture, it comes in occasionally, and I think it's a lot in the rhythm as well. So we had this amazing conversation, Ted and I. So he's a lovely man. And he did sign it for me as well.
Yeah, I had the great honour of actually being at the launch. Lorna gives, yeah,
Oh, wasn't it
Lorna's launch, and
wonderful?
it was just.
Do you know,
Just
they're
Lorna
both such
Goodison,
lovely
sorry,
people
launch,
as
yeah.
well. I mean,
Pardon?
they're very giving, you know, they're lovely people. Can I read one of my own?
Yeah. Well, what we're going to do now.
I'll come back. Right, okay.
We're going to come back to our own now. Nicole and David, do you have someone else's poem you can read out?
I don't have it to hand. No, not to hand.
Yeah.
Violet Jacob.
Right. So what?
Violet
yeah,
Jacobs,
Leslie, if you
yeah.
could please just read your own, then we'll go to Nicole, just so you're prepared. Then I'll go to David. So yeah, Leslie, could you please read one of your own?
Sure. This was, I was involved in a big project at Stirling University. They were doing an exhibition around refugees. So that was this bit, but the actual poem I'm going to read was taken from that and printed in Dovetail's anthology, Bridges and Walls.
Oh, great, yeah.
Right, that
Yes.
was published by Vagabond.
Yeah.
So I'm going to read this one. It's called Sanctuary. I stepped from the land that morphed, defined me, placed words in my mouth, words shaped by family, landscape, tread a path that leads further from ancestors, diminishes me, fold clothes sewn by a mother, place them within a memory, one that must never be opened, harshen vowels for new ears, hush lullabies my children crave, to accept sanctuary, protect my family, this I must do, become a shadow, smile at those who mock, accept that I never will be accepted, I who gave up everything.
Lovely. Very nice. Very nice.
Very nice.
It must never be opened.
Yes.
It's just how they have to, it was really, it evolved because of the government's policy of assimilation. You know, in order to get citizenship, you have to assimilate, you know, give up everything, you know, and what is British? You know, that's a very interesting question.
Exactly. What is British? You know, having lived over in South America for 9 years, you know, I was the very few white people there. You know, I was, and it, you know, it was, it just felt so natural being there. I loved my time there so much because there was no racism whatsoever. You know, as in Venezuela, unfortunately, you can't say the same about Venezuela now. I love Venezuela. I feel so sorry now it's happened. Nicole, could you please read a poem? And then David?
Yeah, sure. I've got Violet Jacob. Have I read this before? Because I read this actually at another thing that David and I were at on Zoom. This, would you believe this? This is Modern Scottish Poetry, edited by Maurice Lindsay, and it is an anthology of the Scottish Renaissance, 1920 to 1945. Modern Scottish Poetry. It's great. So it's got loads of great Scottish poets in it. Hamish MacLaren, William Jeffrey, Muriel Stewart. I had, to be honest with you, I hadn't heard of most of them.
I think we've only got about 8 minutes left, so we
sorry.
It's my fault because I left it too late this time.
Sorry.
It's just I want to hear your words.
Okay, so this is Violet Jacob, the Water Hen. As I guide down by the twa mill dams of the morning, the water hen came out like a passing wraith, and her voice ran through the reeds with a sound of warning, faith, keep faith. Aye, bird, though you see, but in you may cry on baith. As I guide down the field where the dew was lying, my ain love stood where the road and the mill laid met. And it seemed to me that the rowing wheel was crying, forgie, forget. And turn, man, turn, for you ken that low her yet. As I gaed down the road, 'twas a weary meeting, for the ill words said yestreen, they were aye the same, and my heart drowned the wheel with its heavy beating. Lass, think shame. It's no for me you speak, for it's you to blame. As I gaed down by the tune when the day was springing, the Baltic brigs lay thick by the sounding quay, and the rigging hummed with a sang that the wind was singing, free, gang, free. For there's many a load on shore that may be scaled at sea. When I came hame with the thrang o' the years ahint me, there was nought to see for the weeds and the laden spate, but the water hen by the dam she seemed aye to mind me, crying, hope, wait. Aye, bird, but my een grow dim, and it's late, late. I love that.
Brilliant. That's Violet Jacob, isn't it?
Yeah, Violet Jacob, yeah.
David, I'm going to go to you now to read, if you can read a poem, please, and then we'll go back again. Hopefully we'll have time to read a...
Right, I'll do this one. It's Carolyn Force. She this is written from experience. She writes from experience. She's American, and she was at Stanza this year. She was one of the big major poets that came in. Carolyn Force. I'm not sure if you've seen it. I was going to read one of the other ones that I've read before, which is called The Boatman, which is quite relevant. But this one is about somewhere in the mid-Central America, just before the revolution, when she was actually there, before Reagan and that went and made a whole mess of the whole thing. But this is called The Colonel. What you have heard is true. I was in his house. His wife carried a tray of coffee and sugar. His daughter filed her nails. The son went out for the night. There were daily papers, pet dogs, a pistol on the cushion beside him. The moon swung bare on its black cord over the house. On the television was a cop show. It was in English. Broken bottles were embedded in the walls around the house to scoop the kneecaps from a man's leg or cut his hands to lace. On the windows there were gratings like those in liquor stores. We had dinner, rack of lamb, good wine. A gold bell was on the table for calling the maid. The maid brought green mangoes, salt, a type of bread. I was asked how I enjoyed the country. There was a brief commercial in Spanish. His wife took everything away. There was some talk then of how difficult it had become to govern. The parrot said hello on the terrace. The colonel told it to shut up and pushed himself up from the table. My friend said to me with his eyes, say nothing. The colonel returned with a sack used to bring groceries home. He spilled many human ears on the table. They were like dried peach halves. There is no other way to say this. He took one of them in his hands, shook it in our faces, dropped it into the water glass. It came alive there. I'm tired of fooling around, he said. As for the rights of anyone, tell your people they can go fuck themselves. He swept the ears to the floor with his arm and held the last of his wine in the air. Something for your poetry, no? He said. Some of the ears on the floor caught the scrap of his voice. Some of the ears on the floor were pressed to the ground.
Fantastic.
That's actually from experience. She's an artist that goes to war zones and things like that. You know how they do that, and she actually was a poet that goes out, and a writer that goes out to war zones. She goes out to everywhere. She's been to Syria, Libya, you name it. She's been there, Iraq, and that was in the late 70s or early 80s. We're unsure about that. When that happened, that was incredible.
I'm looking forward to next week, and we're going to start earlier next week and hear more poetry, because there's so much amazing poetry out there that we have to, to present to our audiences. And also, I want to hear more poetry from yourselves next week, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we're a bit late starting this week. But next week will be sharper for you. But I hope you enjoyed our recording this evening, folks, and look forward to see you next Wednesday, 7 o'clock, same